Welcome, everyone, to a special Front Office Sports Today, where Portland Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier were arrested as part of a pair of investigations, all related to illegal sports betting and rigged poker games backed by the Mafia. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thanks so much for joining us as we cover this major developing story. So we're going to get you up to date on everything we know so far in our main event.
All right, let's bring in FOS reporter Ben Horney, who's joining us outside the courtroom where these charges were just announced. Ben, tell us what the FBI and the Justice Department are alleging here.
Yeah, crazy stuff. So there's two cases, two investigations, both of which are still ongoing, by the way. So there could be future charges. But this morning they unsealed these two indictments. One was called Operation Royal Flush. That is about this alleged poker ring. The other one, I don't remember the name offhand, but it's about the players that were allegedly giving insider information so that people could place bets on prop bets on, like, Terry Rozier, he's the one involved in that, will score less than 10 points or whatever. There were more than 20 officials in the room today, a bunch of press. There was no internet, very frustrating for me. It's not about me, though. Kash Patel was there, director of the FBI. He called this mind-boggling. He said it's tens of millions of dollars across multiple years and across these two investigations. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot, and this is the first time we've heard Chauncey Billups named in any sort of gambling investigation with his involvement as what they called him as the face card. Can you tell us more about that indictment in particular?
Yeah, so again, that's Operation Royal Flush. There was this alleged scam going on for years where Chauncey Billups was involved. Also, the mob was involved. The 5 Italian mob families were putting together this scheme where they would play these illegal poker games. They would dupe individuals that they called fish. They lured them in to play these games. And the allure was that they were getting to play with people like Chauncey Billups. And allegedly, Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and others were in on it. They would play these games and lose thousands of dollars. The people who are alleged to have done this, they were using technology. They were saying that there was X-ray technology that they had where cards would be face down, but they could still see what the card said. They said they would use contact lenses and glasses that had like certain technology in them so they could see the cards. A very, really crazy, outrageous scheme here. And the officials were saying that the people felt that they were just going to get away with it, that they felt that they had the money, that they had notoriety, all this stuff. But as of today, tons of charges unveiled.
Yeah, and let's talk about Terry Rozier here, because we know he's been linked to a gambling probe since January, and he was reportedly under investigation. The NBA was conducting their own investigation into him as well. So let's talk about the allegations with him. These are based on when he played for the Charlotte Hornets years ago.
Yes. And they referenced, I think it was a March 23rd, I can't remember if it was 2024 or 2023, an actual game, which I believe it's the game that has been out there in the press. He would tell people that he was going to claim that he was injured, whether it was a leg cramp, whether it was whatever. And he would also say, he's going to perform poorly on purpose. And so people would bet the under on his stats, rebounds, points, assists. And he would... in that game, I think it was like he played maybe 9 or 10 minutes. So it was coordinated. He was telling people to bet, and he was taking himself out of the game or playing poorly. Not good.
A lot of this is not good. And of course, there's going to be a lot more that comes from it. Ben, what's next in terms of how this process rolls out? Because, of course, innocent until proven guilty. What's the details in terms of court dates and other next steps that we can expect?
So Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier were arrested this morning. Rozier was in Florida, Chauncey Billups. So they're going to be arraigned and put in front of court today. Billups in Oregon, Rozier in Florida. No specific time for that, and we don't know when the next court appearance would be. But the officials described this as the tip of the iceberg. Both investigations are still ongoing, so it's possible that other people could be implicated, which includes potential players and coaches. They asked the public, hey, if you know anything about this, we're still listening. So I would expect that there will be more to come from this.
Yeah, Chauncey Billups, of course, coaching the Blazers in their loss Wednesday to the Timberwolves, and Terry Rozier did not play in that Heat loss against the Magic on Wednesday as well. Ben Horney, thank you so very much for your updates here, Ben. All right, let's bring in Front Office Sports Editor-in-Chief Dan Roberts for more insight into this. So, Dan, you talked to Adam Silver at Tuned In about this particular situation about gambling in the NBA. What do you think is going to happen now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I started by asking him, I led the witness a little bit. I said, you guys are having some problems here, and this was before this latest scandal. But we knew about Beasley, and we knew about the Rozier stuff, although now it has come to a head. But I said, a lot of these problems were kind of predictable, right? And then he said, it has been predictable. And he brought me back all the way to when he wrote a now infamous op-ed in the New York Times. And he had been commissioner at that point for less than a year. It was 2014. He advocated, very publicly and vocally, the most of any commissioner, for legalizing sports betting. He also said you need to bring it from the dark out into the light, and the leagues should get integrity fees. Everyone made fun of that and mocked that at the time, which Silver also referenced last month at our event and had a good laugh on that. But the point of the integrity fees was, his argument was, we can legalize it, but the sportsbooks need to work closely with the leagues. Otherwise, this is going to be a mess. And now to hear him tell it, pretty spicy answer, and we tweeted this out if people want to watch a clip, that's not how it went. They struck down PASPA. We now have a state-by-state messy legal landscape. Not legal in Texas, not legal in California, legal in many other states, more than half the states. And in addition, to hear him tell it, most of the sportsbooks didn't work with the leagues. And so you have this crazy mess. There are some that they've made partnerships with, fine. But he's a little bit trying to blame the messy regulatory landscape for these scandals. Even if the regulation was super tight and everyone was great and closely in touch, wouldn't you have these scandals? That's kind of my take. I'm not sure he would have prevented these, but a little bit, he punts things to the messy regulatory landscape. But God knows, now you fast forward 1 month, you've got this mega scandal. They are going to have to say, and very soon, a lot more on this than they've said. So far, we've got one thin 3-sentence statement that basically says, integrity of the league, we'll let the investigation run its course, and Billups and Rozier, for now, are on leave.
Yeah, and the reality is, though, these scandals around gambling are not new. I mean, when you can point back decades to across sports, baseball, hockey, basketball, soccer, you name it, of some very historic actual sports betting scandals that came out. So now we've heard talks about the NCAA, the NBA specifically looking to remove player prop bets as a way to minimize this. Realistically, looking at the history of this might feel like the biggest recent scandal. Is this actually something that they can truly ever change?
Well, right. I mean, look at the Super Bowl. There's always been prop betting on the Super Bowl. Now, I think the reason basketball in particular has had so many scandals amid the legal sports betting era is because of the prevalence of prop bets in basketball. And Silver at our tuned-in event mentioned prop bets, but he was careful to say, but it's not only prop bets that are the problem. And you're exactly right. That's not the only problem. And there were problems before it was legalized. I don't think anyone was delusional enough to think that legalizing would make all these scandals go away. But now you have a nuance with the scandals. But, you're betting in states where you're legally now allowed to bet. But were you betting on your own games? Were you betting on basketball games? You bring up college. Charlie Baker and the NCAA want to ban prop bets on college kids. I think that's probably a good thing. It's hard to argue with that. But at the college level, they've also just begun allowing, or it'll start November 1st, but it's official now that they will allow current college athletes to bet on pro sports. I mean, the timing of this is crazy. Just coincidence, but literally yesterday that became official, and then today you have this. Now we should say the NBA scandal has nothing to do with college basketball. They have officially let us know. But the timing of all this, it's just a giant mess, right? And then the last thing I want to say that you're totally right about is, can you really stop people from doing prop bets, right? I mean, we all have been in a Super Bowl Squares poll. We all maybe have filled out a prop bet sheet. I've filled one out before, and I'm talking years ago before it was legal. So if you say we're not going to allow prop bets, okay, you don't allow it, now you can't do it through the legal apps. People who are used to placing prop bets on the Super Bowl or on basketball are still going to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
What I think is also interesting is I think we thought it was just this isolated incident with Rozier leaving a game, within 9 minutes. But when you look through the indictment, there's allegations of the Blazers tanking. There's an allegation with a Lakers game. There's all of this stuff. Is there another shoe that's going to drop in all of this?
Has to be, right? I mean, this is a huge probe. Apparently, it took the FBI 2 years to do the Rozier part of this. There were 30 different people caught up in this. I also think we're doing a good job of this, but it's really important everyone distinguish that there's the Rozier probe, which is about what is colloquially called point shaving.
Right.
Yeah.
Cash Vitello called it, he likened it to insider trading. That's over here. The Billups thing, which is extremely colorful and crazy, is a poker game, a rigged poker game.
Correct.
Now, Damon Jones was involved in both. He's the bridge. But we're just talking about the Rozier stuff right now. Surely more has to come out. Meanwhile, we talk about Malik Beasley. That was months ago. And what we learned about that was that he hasn't officially been cleared, but he's not part of this. And already I've seen a statement from his attorney saying the fact that he's not tied up in this or named in this yet shows his innocence. We'll see. But we haven't yet had from the NBA an official statement of Beasley is in the clear, right? So that's yet another player involved in all this. We'll see what happens. But more has to come out. It wasn't just that he checked out of games early. It was leaking inside information about teams and players to bettors who were making money from the prop bets.
Yeah, and of course the big players are not named in this indictment, but obviously a lot of people are connecting the dots.
Star
already.
NBA player who was on the Lakers in 2022 and 23.
Exactly. We'll let
Definitely
you
more
paint
to
that
come.
picture. Thank you so much, Dan Roberts,
Thanks, guys.
Editor-in-Chief. And we have more Front Office Sports Today right after this quick break. Welcome back, friends, to Front Office Sports Today. That's Renee Washington, and I'm Baker Machado. And the San Francisco Giants made a big splash, hiring Tony Vitello as the new manager. He was the University of Tennessee's manager. And interestingly, Renee, this marks the very first time a big league team has hired a manager directly from a college program without any Major League Baseball experience whatsoever. So let's bring in baseball writer over at the San Francisco Standard, John Shea. John, great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. So why did the Giants take a big swing here on Vitello?
Well, if you look at the standings this past year and the previous 3 years, it's 500 every year, which is the epitome of mediocre. In the National League West, that doesn't fly with the Dodgers and the Padres, who have really beaten up on the Giants in recent years. And Buster Posey is in charge, and he's the man in the middle of all those World Series championships in 10, 12, and 14, and now he's the chief executive, president of baseball operations, and he saw in his first year on the job last year under Bob Melvin's managership that it was just more of the same. So how do you beat the Dodgers and Padres? Well, one way is not trying to be mediocre every year and playing on the margins and trying to fool people into thinking, well, this guy can play or that guy can play. It's taking some drastic, bold decisions and major, unique moves such as this that might ignite the franchise and turn the franchise into what it once was with Posey behind the plate and in the middle of the lineup. So he went out and got the best or one of the best college coaches out there who has zero experience in pro ball as a player, coach, or manager. So it's quite extreme.
It is, John, and it's been interesting to watch because since we saw Bob Melvin removed and be fired less than 3 months after picking up his option for the 2026 season, for the team option, you started to wonder who was going to be next. And with buyouts for Melvin, with Tony Vitello's contract, what are the financial and the details around the contract and how San Francisco is going to be able to make this financially pay out in that regard?
Yeah, there was a $3 billion buyout, but we at the San Francisco Standard reported yesterday that it's a series of contracts, a series of salaries over 3 guaranteed years at $3.5 a year, with a vesting option for the 4th year. Now, that is higher end in terms of major league managers. It certainly is in terms of NCAA coaches. Bob Melvin got in the $4 million neighborhood, but he's been around 20 years and was manager of the year several times. This guy's never done anything in pro ball, but that just shows how much faith and trust Buster Posey has in Tony Vitello as a guy who can come in and motivate, because all that rah-rah stuff you saw in college might not play out with these grown men and who are not teenagers anymore and are accomplished professional people in their field and the best in the world at what they do. So they're not maybe going to go for a lot of that rah-rah stuff, but motivation and inspiration and energy are 3 things that really appealed to Buster Posey, because he maybe hasn't seen enough of it in recent years, and that's what this guy is all about from Tennessee.
John, how would you sort of describe Buster Posey and his philosophy running the Giants? I mean, obviously, this is an unconventional hire, and as you correctly mentioned, look, you have to do something different to compete in a really difficult National League West, but how would you sort of describe Buster Posey's philosophy with the Giants here?
I spoke with him in August, and I say, what do you want to see in these final 2 months? Because we didn't know about Bob Melvin's future. They weren't playing well despite the trade for Rafi Devers from Boston and the highest contract ever given to a player, Willie Adames. They were losing 6 in a row, 8 in a row, 7 out of 8, 8 out of 10, and the pitching wasn't there or the offense wasn't there. And I said, what do you want to see these last 2 months? And the first thing he says is hard-nosed baseball. Just hard-nosed baseball. In other words, do the little things right, move the guy over, play smart, hit the cutoff man. I mean, there are so many little things in baseball that if you go to a game, you'll see them all the time instead of, the big highlights at the end of the day, the home runs or the grand slams or the strikeouts. He hit 104 on the clock. I mean, there's so much more than that. And that's what Posey was all about. There were a lot of personalities back in Posey's day, from Pablo Sandoval, Hunter Pence, and Brian Wilson, Tim Lincecum. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's not that many now. He wasn't one. He wasn't an outgoing type A personality, but he was surrounded by them, and he doesn't mind them. And I think he wouldn't mind having more of them now. And maybe the biggest personality is going to be the new manager. So he's okay with that because he saw how that, materialized and won championships back in the day. And I think energy is just the big thing that he wants out of not just the manager, but 9 innings over 162 games.
Mm-hmm. Seems like he's definitely getting it with this hire. John, thank you so very much for joining us. Baseball writer at the San Francisco Standard, John Shea. Thanks again. All right, let's switch gears and let's talk the NFL. They wrapped their fall meetings with owners and some big news about the future of the Pro Bowl, as well as some big global news for Amazon Prime with their big Black Friday game. So let's bring in FOS reporter Eric Fisher, who covered those meetings. Eric, good to see you as always. So let's start with the Pro Bowl. It's moving indoors.
Yes. It's moving indoors. They've tried a bunch of different things to try to get this right. We'll see if this one works. We, for many years, had a traditional tackle football game to the point where that just became just laughable. So they moved to flag football, and that sort of dovetailed with what the league wants to do with promoting flag football. It's going to be an Olympic sport in 2028. Qualitatively, that was a really good shift, but the ratings have continued to go down. And what they're doing now is by moving it into Super Bowl week, maybe better participation, more energy. You've got fans right there in the convention center where Super Bowl experience is going to happen. And we'll see if it works, but it's definitely going to be a much more intimate experience. And what the league is describing is they want to build a Thunderdome for flag.
So we're hearing updates through the meetings regarding these tentpole events, and one is Black Friday, as we have heard the announcement for the Eagles-Bears game on Black Friday, November 28th, now going to be on Prime, broadcast to a worldwide audience. What else can you tell us the details about this first of its kind global broadcast they're doing for Black Friday?
Yeah, so this really kind of dovetails with really what Netflix and YouTube have done with their streaming games, where the Christmas games last year on Netflix and again this year were to a worldwide audience. And then we had the worldwide audience again on YouTube for the Week 1 game in Brazil between the Chiefs and Chargers. And so Amazon, I think rightly, it's like, hey, we'd be interested in that too, and doing the same thing. And as we've discussed on this program many times, the NFL has had, and they still have, very aggressive global ambitions, and this feeds right into it. And even though Black Friday isn't a thing outside of the U.S., that drafts directly, of course, on our Thanksgiving, it's still going to be, and particularly in Europe, this is going to be a primetime game with a time difference. And so it's a late season game involving 2 popular teams, including the defending Super Bowl champion, and a big window. This should get a big audience.
Also, the owners approved the NFL Media's acquisition by ESPN. That seemed like that was going to be a foregone conclusion. Were there any other surprises or things that you learned during the meetings?
So couple of things. The NFL is standing very firmly behind Bad Bunny for the Super Bowl halftime show. This was really the first full on-the-record comment from Roger Goodell on this issue in the last few weeks, since this thing has become a political lightning rod. And so they're standing 100% behind them, and that's the right choice, I think. It would create all sorts of issues to sort of go back on what they've already said they intend to do. The other thing that was surprising as well is no real discussion about the tush push. That's going to resurface in the off season, but that big hot button issue, and we had the vote in the spring that failed to kill the tush push, and so it's lived on for this current season. Very hard to officiate, as we've seen on a week-to-week basis. But right now they're between it being in season and having another number of other irons in the fire, the NFL does not seem to be particularly focused on that right now.
Yeah, I did see they're going to just be better about the officiating, because there are people complaining about the officiating around the tush push.
Yes.
But I love the fact there were so many positive things that you got to cover there.
Yes, good stuff. Eric Fisher, thank you so much, Eric, for all your insights. And don't go anywhere, guys. We got more Front Office Sports Today headed your way right after this break. Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee. I'm Baker. Let's get you caught up on some of the other stories we're following over at the FOS Water Cooler. And Renee, let's start with Lionel Messi. He has signed a contract extension with Inter Miami. This will keep the star in MLS through 2028. Now, the new deal comes before Inter Miami plays Nashville SC on Friday in the first round of the playoffs. Messi's contract was set to expire at the end of the year, and while we don't have the financials just yet, Messi is expected to remain the highest paid player in the MLS. He earned $20.4 million from his previous deal, Renee.
Yeah, and it took them several months to get this deal done, Baker, because they wanted to make sure they got it right. Messi's been such a big part of the club ever since joining, bringing them their first ever titles with the 2023 Leagues Cup and the 2024 Supporters Shield. He individually has won MVP last year, looking to repeat again this year, a Golden Boot this year. And so you have to lock in Messi, not only for Inter Miami. He talked about their new stadium that they're building for the new home of their field, Miami Freedom Park. That should be done and opening up in phases in 2026. He's helped with the club. He's helped with the league. He's helped with soccer in the country. And they wanted to keep the face of the league in Major League Soccer, but for Miami, you had to keep him in Miami.
So true. And also, what is MLS without Lionel Messi? And with all the growth that they've had, especially heading into the World Cup, you almost feel like they needed Lionel Messi to still be a part of the league as well. Well, former New York Liberty head coach Sandy Brondello has agreed to become the very first head coach of the expansion Toronto Tempo, with an announcement coming in the next few days. Now, Brondello is the winningest coach in New York Liberty and Phoenix Mercury history. She won a title with each of those franchises. And the Liberty, of course, fired her last month after the team was eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. Brondello also interviewed for the open jobs with Dallas and Seattle, Renee, before she chose Toronto.
Yes, and for her to have so many options and choose Toronto to be their first coach, I think she brings the championship experience you mentioned of bringing even the Liberty their first ever franchise championship, but also she has the support of her players. We saw that with Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu, where they were rallying and vouching for her after their early playoff elimination. And so when the Tempo locked in Monica Rogers, as their first ever GM, she also has some similar paths that she's taken of being an assistant GM with the Phoenix Mercury, coaching in similar stops. And so I think for them, since that hiring way back in February for Monica Rogers to now this hiring at Sandy Brondello, they want to be very intentional about bringing former players, champions, and winners at the highest level. And I think they got it right, because she was honestly the biggest name in terms of free agents of coaches available.
I believe they are the only GM and coach duo that actually has WNBA playing experience, which I think is really, really important there. Well, Fox Sports said that the ALCS Game 7 thriller between the Blue Jays and the Mariners was seen by over 9 million viewers, making it the most watched ALCS game on any network since 2017. The 7-game series averaged close to 5 million viewers here in the U.S. Meanwhile, up in Canada, Sportsnet's coverage of Game 7 was seen by 6 million people, and that's the network's largest Blue Jays telecast ever. That means, Renee, 15% of the entire Canadian population watched that game. That is basically everybody watching here, the Super Bowl here in the United States. That's basically the exact equation here.
Yeah, it is remarkable remarkable because we have the Canadian numbers and the U.S. numbers, and to have that average of 9 million viewers to make it the most watched ALCS on any network since Game 7 back in 2017 is remarkable. But I think it speaks to when you have those Game 7s, what it draws out. Because on the other side, for the NLCS, they saw a massive drop-off in comparison to last year, which last year was a historic number in that Dodgers-Mets NLCS. So it was a hard bar to reach, but to see them have such a decrease this past NLCS of about 17% and averaging around 4.7 million viewers speaks to when we get Game 6s, Game 7s, people are ready to lock in and tune in, and the numbers definitely support that.
And as our Eric Fisher tells us, because this is such an international World Series, because of the ratings you're going to get in Japan, the fact that you have so much interest in Canada right now, plus the United States, this potentially could be one of the most watched World Series we'll ever see, at least in the wild. Well, a second wild opening tip-off on Wednesday, and the NBA saw big wins for the Knicks, Magic, and even your Sixers, Renee. Yet the biggest story of the night was Victor Wembanyama, who put up a monster game in the Spurs win over the Mavericks. Wemby scored 40 points and 15 rebounds, and yes, Cooper Flagg made his debut for the Mavs. He started at point guard, and he scored just 10 points, but he had a couple of really good shots. What was your favorite part of it?
I like that we got to see them pay it forward. When Victor Wembanyama had his rookie debut, it was against the Mavs.
Yes, true.
He had 9 of his 15 points in the fourth quarter. People were also dragging him, questioning how good he really was. He got to pay it forward now with an explosive debut to have a scoreless Cooper Flagg in the first half that ended up still with 10 points.
Sure.
And then on the other side, we saw a fantastic rookie debut for VJ Edgecombe
Oh
alongside Tyrese Maxey, the 34 points that he put up to help beat the Celtics.
Yeah.
Fantastic way to start off the year, and honestly, the NBA's opening days so far have not disappointed in my opinion.
By the way, as a Sixers fan, I bet you were loving VJ Edgecombe
and it's just
his
time to move on from
performance.
Joel Embiid.
Yes, by the way, I loved the Magic game. I switched to that game last night as well just to see Desmond Bane and how he would be with Banchero and Wagner, and that was really exciting. And you have to really think that a team like the Magic are going to be really big contenders in the Eastern
It's
Conference.
only game one, so I'm not want to get carried away because there's a long season ahead.
By the
But
way,
so far, there are some teams that look
Knicks
pretty
look good too as well. Renee and I are going to be back tomorrow for more fun. We're going to preview the World Series for you on Friday's show. We'll see you later.